Behind the Iron Curtain, Moscow decreed that Czechoslovakia's luxury pioneer, Tatra, build only heavy trucks. Yet, in secret, defiant Czech engineers launched an illegal rebellion. Their weapon was the Tatra 603, an aerodynamically futuristic teardrop sedan hiding a rear-mounted, air-cooled aluminum V8. Born from clandestine blueprints, this mechanical masterpiece was engineered to outsmart the entire Soviet bloc. To understand why this vehicle should not exist, one must look at the state-directed industrial framework of post-war Europe. Following the political shifts of 1948, Czechoslovakia's manufacturing sectors were rapidly nationalized. Production parameters were no longer determined by market demand, consumer preference, or competitive automotive spirit. Instead, they were dictated by the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance, known as Comecon, the centralized economic planning body of the Soviet bloc based in Moscow. Comecon's overarching strategy relied on strict specialization among member states to maximize industrial output and control resource allocation. In 1951, Moscow issued a crushing directive to the managers at the Koprivnica plant. The company was ordered to immediately halt all passenger car development. Meanwhile, in Detroit, Cadillac was experimenting with massive tail fins and chrome. In Stuttgart, Mercedes-Benz was pioneering mechanical fuel injection. But in Koprivnica, the assembly lines were abruptly cleared. Tatra's mandate was unyielding. Dedicate 100% of factory capacity to heavy, multi-axle commercial trucks and military transport chassis. The state decided that the world only needed Tatra to build rugged, utilitarian workhorses capable of moving Siberian timber and industrial concrete. If a high-ranking administrative official, minister, or diplomat within Czechoslovakia required a premium passenger vehicle, they were commanded to import Soviet-built alternatives. They were forced to ride in the traditional Gaz Volga or the heavy, cast-iron ZIS limousines. These vehicles represented Moscow's idea of luxury, orthodox, conservative, and structurally conventional. For Moscow's planners, the allocation of industrial labor was fixed and permanent. Tatra's passenger car lineage was effectively closed. The future of Czech automotive design was meant to die on a drafting table filled with commercial dump truck schematics and planetary gear axle designs. But you cannot erase decades of deeply ingrained expertise with a simple political decree. Tatra wasn't simply a car company. It was an institution of advanced thermodynamics and fluid dynamics, possessing an intellectual heritage that predated the Soviet Union itself. In the pre-war era, Tatra's technical teams had operated at the absolute cutting edge of vehicle dynamics. Under the technical guidance of the legendary Hans Ledvinka, they had perfected the rigid central backbone chassis and independent swing axle suspension. They had introduced the world to streamlined, rear-engined luxury with the revolutionary Tatra 77 and the iconic Tatra 87. These cars weren't styled by artists trying to catch a passing trend. They were shaped by the immutable laws of physics in early wind tunnels. The design teams viewed the truck mandate not just as an administrative shift, but as an ideological insult to their intellect. They knew that if they stopped designing passenger cars, a generation of highly specialized aerodynamic and packaging knowledge would be permanently lost to history. The factory was legally bound to build heavy commercial chassis to satisfy the state's quotas, but the minds inside the research and development department remained fiercely independent. They recognized that while they had to give the state its trucks by day, the night belonged to the pursuit of automotive perfection. A quiet, sophisticated internal resistance began to form within the walls of the Koprivnica plant. The salvation of Tatra's passenger car heritage lay in exploiting a single, subtle administrative distinction within the factory's operational structure. While the official factory assembly lines were strictly bound to the state's commercial truck quotas, the Advanced Development Department retained a separate, deliberately vague mandate. They were officially authorized to research future transport concepts, fuel efficiency, and advanced powertrain configurations for the socialist state. Under this official research designation, Engine specialist Julius Makale and visionary designer František Kardaus quietly initiated a design study focused on a premium passenger sedan. To keep the project hidden from the prying eyes of state ministries, the covert project was internally designated as Project Valuta. Operating without a dedicated passenger car budget, official tool sets, or authorized raw materials, Makale's team treated the project as an advanced engineering exercise. They conducted initial packaging layouts, developed chassis mock-ups, and calculated fluid dynamics equations using factory research resources after normal working hours. Imagine the scene. The main factory floors are dark and silent. The state inspectors have left for the day. Under dim, incandescent bulbs in a back room, engineers pull out hidden rolls of drafting paper. They weren't acting like underground saboteurs. They were acting like pure scientists dedicated to their craft. Every step of Project Valuta had to be validated through the lens of absolute technical efficiency. They couldn't afford to build a conventional car because a conventional car would look like a waste of resources. If Project Valuta was ever discovered by state authorities, the team needed its economic, aerodynamic, and mechanical advantages to be so overwhelming that the state would be forced to approve it rather than punish its creators. They kept drawing, casting small test components, and calculating thermal loads under the cover of basic industrial research. The visual result of this clandestine research was a vehicle that departed sharply from the conventional automotive design language of the mid-1950s. During this era, Western design favored heavy chrome accents, protruding vertical grilles, and aggressive, non-functional tail fins. Soviet manufacturing relied heavily on traditional, squared-off body profiles derived from pre-war American packaging. Tatra's engineers completely rejected both approaches, treating the 603 as a strict, uncompromising exercise in fluid dynamics. The vehicle featured a smooth, continuous underbody to prevent turbulent air from trapping beneath the car, and a curved nose that completely omitted a conventional radiator grille. The front luggage lid sloped downward at a precise angle to guide airflow smoothly over a panoramic, three-dimensionally curved wraparound windshield. The roofline formed a continuous teardrop arc that tapered gracefully into a fastback rear end. This sweeping tail was split down the center by a functional aerodynamic fin designed to enhance directional stability against crosswinds when traveling at high highway speeds. But the most distinctive element of the Tatra 603 was its integrated front lighting assembly. Positioned centrally in the nose, behind a single continuous sheet of glass, sat three high-intensity headlights. The central light was mechanically linked directly to the steering apparatus. When the driver rotated the steering wheel, the central light pivoted in tandem with the front wheels. It projected a beam directly into the upcoming corner, illuminating the dark road before the vehicle chassis completed its turn. This safety feature was seamlessly integrated into a body that achieved a remarkably low drag coefficient of just 0.36. To put that in perspective, the 603 was sleeker than a Ferrari Testarossa built 30 years later. It didn't just look like the future, it mastered the physics of the air. While the exterior was designed to optimize airflow, the true heart of the Tatra 603 lay beneath its rear deck lid. An air-cooled 2.5-litre V8, designated Type 603. Unlike the global standard of the 1950s, front-mounted, liquid-cooled engines connected to rear axles via long, heavy drive shafts, this design rejected convention entirely. Engineers chose a fully integrated rear-mounted transaxle, combining engine and transmission into one compact unit. Building an air-cooled V8 for a luxury sedan posed serious thermal challenges. Without a radiator, water pump, or coolant system, the engine relied entirely on airflow management. Lightweight aluminium blocks and cylinder heads were cast with deep external fins to dissipate heat efficiently. Two belt-driven fans pulled air through side intakes, forcing it across the cylinders before expelling it rearward through carefully designed ducting. Technically advanced for its era, the engine featured hemispherical combustion chambers, a central camshaft, and twin carburetors. It produced around 95 horsepower initially, later rising to 105. Compared to heavy cast-iron American engines with complex cooling systems, this layout achieved performance through efficiency, lightness, and thermal precision. By eliminating liquid cooling, the system reduced weight, increased reliability, and removed failure points like pumps or frozen coolant. It was capable of operating in extreme cold and heat, revving smoothly to 5,000 revolutions per minute, with a distinct mechanical tone unlike anything from its time. By the mid-1950s, the project had grown beyond secrecy. Initially hidden as an internal experiment, it evolved into a fully functional prototype. Soon, government attention shifted from suspicion to interest, as officials realized imported Soviet limousines were failing on mountainous roads, overheating, consuming excessive fuel, and wearing rapidly under heavy weight. An official evaluation was requested. The prototype proved superior in speed, comfort, and efficiency, using less than half the fuel of its counterparts. Recognizing its strategic value, authorities reclassified it as an administrative transport asset and secured production approval through bureaucratic negotiation within the Comecon system. Once approved, the rear engine layout delivered major packaging advantages. Without a transmission tunnel, the cabin floor was completely flat, allowing spacious seating for 6 passengers. The front trunk offered generous storage, while a hidden spare wheel compartment improved practicality. On the road, the car excelled in stability and long-distance cruising, sustained by low aerodynamic drag. However, its rear heavy weight distribution required skilled handling, as abrupt throttle changes could induce oversteer due to swing axle dynamics. Despite this, the steering system provided precise feedback, making it a capable high-speed machine in experienced hands. Production continued until 1975, with only 20,000 units built. Today, the Tatra 603 stands as a symbol of engineering defiance, proof that innovation can survive even under strict political control and outlast the systems that once tried to limit it.